Good morning, everyone. We could have a super catchy takeaway to today's live stream and say it's this: press on. Have courage, keep the faith, and press on, brothers and sisters. And that would be really catchy. But the takeaway of today's live stream is a lot less catchy, but it's connected to this message of pressing on. Here's the takeaway. I'm inviting everybody today to read the book of Philippians. And I'm going to try to convince you of why that's a great idea. First, we've been reading the Gospel of Mark on Sundays, and as Father Rick observed, the Gospel of Mark is the briefest of the four Gospels. It's the pithiest. It's concise. It's very precise storytelling. And that actually the shortness and conciseness sheds a light on Jesus that makes him in some ways more illuminating and more compelling. Well, if the Gospel of Mark, you can sit down and read it, read it slowly in an hour. The book of Philippians, Paul's letter to the church at Philippi, is 2 pages. And wow, is it ever thick. It's dense, not in the dense stupid, but dense, packed with great things, including the line where Paul says he's not fully there yet. As much as he's glimpsed God and had this conversion, he's not fully there. But he says, brothers, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, this total connection to God. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Now, I was reminded at centering prayer last night by our good friend Mary Nicholson that there's this meditation trick that I had heard before, and she said she used it last night. And what it is we take the line from the Psalm, be still and know that I am God, and then you shorten it to be still and know that I am, and you breathe that in a few times. Then it's shortened again, be still and know. And this shorter phrase, you meditate on be still and know. And it shortens again to be still. And in its final iteration, the meditator just says, be. Breathes in, breathes out, be. Because in that be now is contained the whole phrase, be still and know that I am God. Well, I'm going to shorten Paul's phrase, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. The first thing I'm taking off is heavenward in Christ Jesus and making it even more concise. I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me. I press on toward the goal. This is what we should all be doing during COVID and during life in general, a life in faith, a life that has a faith that desires God, knows God, but desires to know God more fully. Just like Paul sitting there in that prison in Rome, writing this letter to the Philippians. He says, I'm getting a lot, but I know there's more. I'm pressing on. And we all have that option right now. There are things that are frustrating all of us. I think it's pretty well known. I would have opened churches 3 months ago. But I'm reminded as an Episcopalian, that was not my decision to make. But on the other hand, like Paul, I too can press on fully toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me. And God has called you to a prize too, that if you're a person of faith, you've already glimpsed or seen quite a bit of. And if you've seen it, you also know you're not fully there. We're only fully there when we are in heaven. So right now we're looking heavenward. But knowing what we've already felt from God is what keeps us empowered as we press on, as we move forward. And thinking about God's grace and goodness and faithfulness to us keeps us strong when some of the outer facts, like having your vaccination date canceled because there was snow in the entire middle of the United States, or not getting the vaccination you wanted Pfizer, you got Moderna, or the other way around, or not being able to go to church, or worse things than not being able to go somewhere or to sit inside a full restaurant. You've been sick and you still don't have your sense of smell, or worse than that, relatives have been lost, loved ones, friends have been lost to COVID. I'm not making light of any of this, but remember that in all this hardship, God's greatness can still be totally revealed. God can redeem all these things, can and will. We have to remember, though, to press on. And one way I would like to invite everybody today, it will take you about as long to read these 2 pages as it has to listen to this 7-minute live stream. Read the book of Philippians. Oh, and one little tip, even though it's only 2 pages, once you get to chapter 4, verse 9, you can skip the end, because after Paul ends the letter with, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. That's really where the letter ends, because let's be honest, after that he does a little fundraising, which he then cancels by saying, well, if you want to send me money, great, but I don't really need it. So as short as Philippians is, you can skip the last 3 paragraphs too. So just cost you a couple minutes. Prayerfully read the book of Philippians and see if God through Paul doesn't give you power and patience and help you to focus on what is really good, true, beautiful, and also the possibilities of this hour, of this day of your life, to press on toward the prize of the life that God has designed for you. That's what I got. Press on, sisters and brothers. I love you. Let's all press on.